Hi, everyone. This is John Daly. I'm here today with a special episode of the Daly Express. I had mentioned before that I would be doing some podcasting from the Principal's First event in Washington, D.C. I got into town on Thursday night in, I would say, Arctic cold temperatures. It was very windy and very cold, but I was very kindly invited by Dave Thule. He's one of the Principal's First organizers. He was also a guest on this podcast a few months ago. He invited me to dinner with a number of event volunteers. It was a wonderful meal with some really down to earth, top notch people at an Italian restaurant here. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. On Friday during the day, I got in quite a bit of sightseeing, museums and monuments and whatnot. And on Friday night, I went to the Principal's First reception at a very cool concert venue. It's called the Hamilton Live. I just got back from that a little while ago. I'm in my hotel room, but while I was there, I decided to try and get in some short podcast interviews with Principal's First guests, volunteers, and some event speakers. In hindsight, that may have been an ill-advised decision. It was very loud, as you'll hear, because there was a ton of people there. It was quite dark, as you'll see if you're watching the video version of this episode, and some alcohol may have been consumed. But I went ahead and did it anyway, and that's what you're about to hear, and in some cases see. Just a couple notes before we get to that. Former Congressman Joe Walsh, I'm sure many of you are familiar with him. He was one of the people I interviewed. He happened to be hanging out next to me, and I figured, hey, why not? Why not talk to him a little bit? I just want to warn people, he did use some pretty colorful language, so if you have kids in the room, you've been warned. Also, while I was interviewing one of the attendees, I noticed a guy standing a few feet away, wasn't really paying attention to me, but he looked familiar to me. I soon realized that it was police officer Daniel Hodges. You all may remember him from the January 6th footage as the cop who was crushed by the mob that was trying to get into the Capitol. He later testified in front of the January 6th committee. We had a good exchange, and we talked for a while after I stopped recording. Very nice guy. I enjoyed our conversation quite a bit, but just kind of wanted to remind people who that was if you weren't quite sure. So here we go. A few brief interviews with some of the people at Principal's First. Hey everyone, I'm here with Stacy from South Carolina. She's a guest at Principal's First. Stacy, what brings you out this year?
I came last year. I thought it was great. I'm at a point right now where I need to get a little hope, and the program just looks like it's going to be great. I really got a lot last year, especially from Cassidy Hutchinson and Alyssa Farrow and Sarah Matthews. I thought they were great. Really, proved yet again, in my opinion, that the women are some of the ones that are doing the heavy lifting.
You were telling me that you're also a big fan of Nancy.
Yeah. Nancy Mace is my congressional representative, and she and I are buddies. No, not a big fan at all.
Looking forward to seeing hosts this year.
Tim Miller and
Of the Bulwark.
yeah, all the Bulwark folks. Kyle Sweetser, who just spoke. I'm really interested to meet him. I'm interested to hear Joe Walsh talk again. I've seen him a couple times. And Heath always has something really interesting to say. I was glad to see that Adam Kinzinger is on the program again. And Charlie Sykes, I think I saw, was on the program. Pretty much everybody but John Bolton.
Okay. And why don't you like John Bolton?
Because I feel like that John Bolton didn't step up and do something until he felt like that it was safe enough, like that he'd already gone so far that it wasn't going to hurt him anymore, and he could finally speak out. And I feel like that he could have stopped it.
I feel like that's a common story with a lot of different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tim Scott, Lindsey Graham. Welcome to South Carolina.
Well, thanks, Stacy. I hope you have a good time.
Thanks.
Oh, this will be your first time. Well, I'm talking to Elizabeth Anton. She's one of the attendees here at Principal's First. She said this is her first podcast, so that's very exciting. Thanks for coming on the Daly Express. What brought you out here this year to Principles First?
Well, I first learned about the Bulwark is the original group that kind of tied me to this. And I met them in the town hall that they did in Seattle back in, gosh, it must have been like 2 or 3 years ago. And then last year, I was here like days before they did this conference last year, and I was so upset that I missed it. And I said, I'm going to go next year. So I actually planned my retirement to be 2 weeks before this conference so I could come and not have to be worried about work for once. And I brought one of my very good friends with me. And I'm super excited to be here because I'm hoping this is sort of my new career, is to help right this ship. We desperately need the people on the either side of the center, left and right of the center. They need to work together to try to bring our country back to normalcy.
So what did you say you did come last year, correct?
No, I did not, but I learned about it and I watched the entire program from start to finish. That was before they edited it. So I actually sat through and even like the lunches and everything until they had a chance to put it all together really in an organized fashion.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, someone's getting ready to go speak, so I think
Yeah.
I'll cut this off. But
That's
thank
okay.
you very much
Absolutely.
for joining me. Hope you have a good night.
So glad. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Well, I'm here with Joe Walsh, former congressman at Principles First. He's one of the speakers this year. He was here last year. How are you doing, Joe?
Fired up, ready to go. That sounds like Barack Obama. What the
Yes,
heck?
that's right. That's right. So what is it that keeps bringing you back to Principles First?
The country's really fucked up right now. Republican Party's lost. Democrats got to get their act together. We're in exile. It's going to take a while to figure this shit out. So you start with a great group of people with basic principles, and you see where it goes.
So who are some of the people you're interested in listening to besides yourself? Of course,
Besides
yes,
myself.
yes, exactly.
I'm interested to hear Mark Cuban tomorrow.
Okay.
Kind of an independent.
Mm-hmm.
What's he want to do? Does he want to run for president? I don't know. I think we need a strong I want strong independent voices.
What would you say? What do you think is the biggest? I mean, there's a lot of issues out there right now. What's the one that has you most concerned? Is it Ukraine? Is it the economy?
No, we have a fucking dictator in the White House. Period. We have a tyrant in the White House. Nothing scares me more than that. That's got to be fought as in however we can, because everything filters from that. He's trying to shut us up. He's trying to censor our speech. He's trying to rule the media. He's the biggest threat to this country.
Well, thanks, Joe. You always tell it like you see it, so I appreciate you talking to me.
Love you, brother.
Thank you. All right, I'm here with Lisa Savage. She's a board member of Principles First. How's it going, Lisa?
Fantastic.
As always, this is a very impressive event so far. It's only been the reception, but it's great. Can you tell people how you got started with Principles First and what you do?
Sure. I was a lifelong Republican, and in 2016, I realized that I needed to start doing some activism because the set it and forget it voting Republican thing wasn't working for me anymore. And in 2019, I saw Heath Mayo, the founder of Principles First, posting on Twitter, and I was like, oh, I want to vote for somebody like him. And I messaged him and I just said, whenever you decide to run for office, I want to be your first donor. And from that moment, he said, let's get together. I'm going to travel throughout the country and try to reach out to people who view politics the way I do. And he came to South Carolina and we met and I was sold.
Excellent. So what, for like attendees, like regular folks like me who aren't involved in the organization but very appreciative of it, I've enjoyed it. This is my second year here. What do you hope people like me come away with from these events?
Honestly, I hope people realize they're not alone. We are in a sea of a lot of angry people right now, people maybe in both parties who have an idea that they don't like what's going on and they view each other as enemies. And I tell everybody that if you get involved based on principles, who can fight that? Who can fight principles? No one. So I hope people come away with friendships and a desire to make a difference.
So I know you probably don't want to be biased, but I I am curious. Do you have a specific speaker who's going to be here Saturday, Sunday that you're particularly excited about?
I am a huge fangirl of our law enforcement officers. In fact, I'll be able to introduce them when they speak on their panel. They're true heroes. I've gotten to know 2 of the 4 officers who are speaking. I'm forever indebted to them what they did to try to save democracy and uphold the rule of law on January 6th. It's them.
That's a good answer. I think I'm sort of the same way. I've always felt particularly bad for Michael Fanone. He took, I think, probably the worst of anybody. As far as what happened to him with violence and everything, and it's tough when I see him sort of mocked and ridiculed, and I think Donald Trump called him fake or something like that, like not a real cop or something. But yeah, that's it'll be good to hear from them. Anything else you'd like to say about Principles First before I let you go?
Just that it's not about political parties. It's not about personalities. It's a movement, a grassroots movement founded in principles, on principles that I think most people, if you just showed them the list of our principles, they could relate to it and they'd want to be involved and they'd want politics to reflect those principles.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Lisa. Hi, everyone. I'm here with Tom Moyer. He's a Twitter friend of mine, and he's an attendee here at Principles First. How's it going, Tom?
That's great. And meeting for the first time in person as of 3 minutes ago.
That's right. It's very exciting. I am amazed the number of people. I'm glad I have this name tag on because it's always sort of hard to identify people with their little pictures on Twitter and all that stuff. And
It'd be
so people.
impossible without it.
That's right. That's right. Well, Tom, I wanted to ask you. So, what brings you out here to Principles First?
So this is the first of these events I've come to. I attended a Principles First event in Utah that Heath organized with like 5 of us in a library a whole bunch of years ago in the very, very early days of Principles First. And I haven't made the trip to DC for one of these summits since then. It's just always been around lots of other travel, and it's been one too many. But this year it happens to coincide with me needing to be here for work next week. So it's like, yes, I will absolutely come the weekend before and spend 2 days at the summit.
Who are you most excited to hear from tomorrow and Sunday for the speakers?
Honestly, everybody. Right? There's a whole bunch of people that I look up to and want to hear from, and I'm just going to soak in the whole 2 days.
Excellent. Well, they're starting up another speech, which happens every time I interview somebody now. So we're going to go ahead and stop them. But thanks, Tom. I'm glad you stopped by.
All right. Thank you, and great to meet you.
Thank you. All right. I'm here with Daniel Hodges. He was a U.S. Capitol Police officer, still is a Capitol Police officer.
Current Metropolitan Police Department officer, and I'm here in my personal capacity and not on behalf of the city or MPD.
All right. Well, thank you for clearing that up. People might remember him from January 6th. There was some big imagery from that day. I believe he testified in front of the January 6th committee too as well. But it's great to have you. Thank you for your service. I very much appreciate it. What brings you here to Principles First this year?
Well, I was invited, but I was invited along with the other guys that testified with Harry Dunn, Mike Fanone, and Aquilino Ganell. We all testified in front of the January 6th committee to let them and the country know what happened that day, and that it was exactly what it looked like. Trump called a mob to D.C. He was told they were armed. He said, "I don't care. They're not here to hurt me." And then he told them they had to fight. And then he sent them to the Capitol, where they did exactly that. They fought, and they fought us. And they've tried to get in. They tried to, do whatever they had in mind to our elected leaders, to congressional staff, to the vice president. And we were able to stop them. We were able to stop them long enough for our elected leaders to get to safety, return later, and complete the transfer of power. So but unfortunately that day has been twisted and whitewashed, and a lot of Republicans are still lying about what transpired. So unfortunately, we still have to be out there telling people that what actually happened, that the truth matters, and that as long as people deny what happened, we'll be there to set the record straight.
I mean, it has to be very frustrating because you guys did defend. You did exactly your job. Defended members of Congress that day. A number of those members of Congress have been not very gracious for what you did for them that day, to say the least. A lot sort of like to imply that you guys were somehow in on it or helped insurrectionists in. How frustrating is that for you to listen to? I don't want to get you too fired up, but it's got to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's awful, but it's also old news. So, but I mean, it's like a week or two ago, Trump said that nobody assaulted the police on the 6th; they were assaulted, which is just absolutely wild. And yeah, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now if enough people in the Senate had some integrity and voted to complete the impeachment of Donald Trump. And so he wouldn't be able to run again, but they didn't. Mitch McConnell asked for a personal favor from the senators, and they did not impeach him when we had every reason to.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on Mitch McConnell. I think he really could, and there's some debate there whether he could have convinced enough senators to give an impeachment conviction. He absolutely should have. I mean, what happened was absolutely. I mean, if that's not impeachable, nothing is. And yeah, are you? So I know I'm not sure how much of the summit you're going to be at, but is there anybody? I know your fellow police officers from that day are going to be there as well. Is there anybody you're particularly interested in hearing or listening to?
I don't know. I glanced at the list, and there were people that I've recognized and that I'm interested in singing, but nobody I really locked in my schedule for. So I'll get down here and I'll see who I see. And they've got a great lineup, so I'm looking forward to hearing whatever anyone has to say.
Thanks a lot, Daniel. Again, thank you for your service. I'm very appreciative of it. You guys are heroes, and you deserve to be recognized as such. Thank you. All right, I'm here with a friend of the podcast, Rob George. He's been on the Daly Express before. He's a political a political analyst, I would say, but also a comedian.
Yeah, I'm a commentator and a comedian, or a common comedian, as you might say. So yeah, I'm glad to be here on the Daly Express, even though it's a nightly edition of the Daly Express. Is that fair to say?
That's right. And I was going to ask you a question. So when I hear about Principles First, I usually plan out about 6 months in advance about coming here. You told me you just kind of you make your decision sort of at the last minute. Does that mean that you have more of a life than I do?
That's possible, or it could just mean that I'm less organized than you are. Had I thought about this in advance like you did, I would have done things like, gotten my spot at the DC Improv the day before, talk to Heath Mayo about being like the MC for the Friday night show, for the Friday night event, which I think it could have benefited from, and just as a comedian introducing new people. So I'm going to take a leaf from your book next year and be more forthcoming and more forward-thinking on my plans.
Excellent. So what is it? What brings you to Principles First? Is it, I sort of come, honestly, I think part of it's for the networking. It's just fun to meet people who have sort of a similar view of things, because you don't always get that in the other parts of the country. But I also enjoy the speakers. What is it that brings you here?
So my background is that 25 years or so ago, 30 years ago, I was a staffer at the Republican National Committee when President George H.W. Bush was in office. A few years later, I went to work for Newt Gingrich on Capitol Hill. So I come from that area of the Republican Party, which has really evolved, and for some of us we feel that it's been somewhat corrupted over the last few years. So for me, it's partly coming to see other folks that feel a little bit disaffected from the Republican Party. But it's also, you realize, particularly after this recent election, where against all odds, Donald Trump made a remarkable, arguably the biggest political comeback in 100-some years. You've got people who want to see where the country is going. The Republican Party has basically come down to full allegiance to Donald Trump. The Democratic Party is still trying to find its way. And you've got a handful of people out there who believe in things like, who still believe in limited government, who still believe in the importance of America's relationship with its allies across the world, and also believe that there is a centrist position to be made on social issues as well. And so it's good to be in a room for a weekend, or several rooms in a weekend, to have those kind of discussions, and people who feel that principles still do matter.
I'll end with kind of a two-part question. So, is there a speaker in particular that you're especially excited about listening to this weekend? And my second part of that is, you were a speaker last year. I don't think you were asked to be a speaker this year, Robert. So, are you just gonna go ballistic, or how are you gonna handle this?
Oh, I'm miffed. I'm very miffed. I'm miffed with a capital F in the middle of miffed. No. I would imagine that, particularly given the last election, that Heath Mayer and the other organizers probably have what could be considered an embarrassment of riches in terms of some of the people who have come. I mean, Mark Cuban, for example. Now, I should say this. If you want to say that Mark Cuban should be here, I absolutely agree. Were I running the Dallas Mavericks, I would not have traded Luka Dokovic for I don't know what Antonio Davis, who breaks down the second game in there. This is something I would not have done. But of course, Mark Cuban still has lots and lots more money than I do, and we have to admit, and this is sort of the semi-serious part of this, a semi-serious answer to this question. We are in an era where individuals who make a lot of money, millionaires, billionaires, have an important message and an important role to play within our politics. And to the extent that Mark Cuban was willing to become a surrogate for Kamala Harris and is willing to push back against the Trumps and the Elon Musks, he's definitely somebody I would be interested in hearing, and I'm glad that he's speaking here instead of CPAC.
No, that's a good point. I think you were onto something too with the embarrassment of riches. If they were to bring you on for the line, it would really just be showing off, right? I mean, you're a modest guy.
I'm sorry to interrupt, John. I am absolutely not a modest guy, and I would be the first one to tell Heath, I don't need to be on a panel next year, but you do need to hire me as an MC for the Friday night party, to bring the host up and to bring a little bit of levity, because I think one of the kind of code breakers that Donald Trump made is that something that the old Republican Party did not have was an element of humor and lightheartedness and so forth. And to the extent that Principles First might be able to learn from something like that, let's just say we'll stay tuned about what happens next year.
I think that's excellent. Heath, I hope you're listening to this. Thanks again, Robert. It's always great talking to you.
Absolutely.
Have a great night.
Great night, John, and have a great weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. I'll be talking to more people on Saturday and Sunday for a part 2 episode. I don't know if there'll be a part 3. We'll see how things play out. But until then, take care, everyone, and I'll talk to you soon.